Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. I'm watching See the BS this morning on Channel 2, and I'm chasing previously learned cipher intel at like human intelligence or couch potato intelligence, which means it's just garbly-gook. And then how you take those little pearls of whatever and then put it on the loom of the web, of the weaving of some semblance of what are they up to? Like, I have to say to myself, I'm like, I am a step away from homelessness. I feel like absolute garbage because of the chemicals and the components of what I'm being fed. The atmosphere outside has a the air tastes like gamma field radiation. The light doesn't look so hot. It's interfering with my skin's ability to perform. For God's sakes, I'm wearing cupcakes on my socks. If I was in control of a monetary fund where I was making money for just being alive, like so many humans, I would not be dressed or in this facility. But I'm 43. The world's gone to shit. I have no access to any way of making money. I have to rely on Linda to do my wardrobe. And what does she buy me? Cupcakes on my socks at 43. I really don't find her very funny. She also bought me a pair with little chihuahuas on it that says, Felice Naughty Dog. I'm like, oh, Lynn. The tack and the tacky. And it's like the sport of wearing these tacky things to support the home team. I'm like, do you know how embarrassed I would be if, like, the father of the country and the nation I'm trying to protect saw I was wearing cupcake socks? Oh, God. And the condition that North Americans are holding me in? I mean, this is neglect at the, like, most raunchy of scale. For the level of girl with the pearl earring and respected family member at one point. But this is the treatment North America has provided. They just total neglect and disrespect. So anyway, so the other day, the humans defined in their social smallness, in this United States of North America, or America, under these conditions, what their understanding of arbitrage is. So I heard the word pattern. I saw how they wrote it. I'm not doing anything druidically. I'm just regurgitating what I heard them say in like a rumor kind of a way. They said arbitrage is when you pay for something. Actually, I don't think it has to include pay, but you obtain something and then you go out and you resell something. The level for which they were speaking was like at a Craigslist level of like under $1,000 kind of a thing. So they were talking more vintage clothing in like a whatever, a discreet situation. So that's one level. So I took that and just filed that on my whatever and then kept it in the back of my head. That's how they're explaining that new word or concept to themselves. They put a label on it. Then I'm watching this morning the CBS, and on comes chips and manufacturing, and I'm like, now what have they taught themselves this all means? So I'm listening in their humanness of whatever. I'm looking at the artwork of the artificially intelligent for visual cues. And I'm like, wow, they have, for engineers' children, of they like are so few and far between in my whatever that are loved, they got rid of this UV light. They put in special golden light, so they are keeping their children safe somewhere. They're in this like pressure gauged, like they don't have to do double compression. They don't have to really deal with the weather factor components outside. They call this place Global Foundries. I'm like, wow, it's like a slice of heaven to work in the sense of like it's microbiotically safe, it's pressurized, they don't have to deal with the world outside, they can just hide. I'm like, not a bad gig. But for the rest of us, so then I'm going into electronics are one of those things that are really dangerous, depending on whose hands they get into. So I'm a little confused why the chip craze. On the one hand, I get it. We used to be backed by gold. Then the gold mining became a problem when travel and word got out. It was hard to hold small area in this stabilized fashion because word started traveling in dangerous ways between non-business members within the family. I mean, you have like the working class and then you've got the business class and then whatever. And trying to keep that communication stabilized for loyalty factors so there wasn't cross-venting in wars of sorts or whatever, destabilizing, like, for stupidity reasons, causing massive problems at, like, lower level. So, like, the historical and the moving, working piece of it, I get. Then with this new problem, then it's almost at a higher casino value of chips. You have a regulatory body. You have so many allowed to be done. But where it causes a problem for me is the step between manufacturing and holding those chips for special purpose, for a backing to a set currency, to then like an egregious, like disgusting, I mean, I didn't agree to it, but it's disparage and sacrilege, like tossing of the chips out there and then causing biological integrity issues based on sequencing factor and radiological factor, and then the pulling of so much radio frequency within the machines. That's where the quantity then becomes a problem because they made a market. I thought that if they were going to manufacture chips, the market had to be held within a small range, so you didn't have greed and so on and so forth break out. But it doesn't look like they've held to any of the standards that were required of them for this new specialized chip industry, almost as a backing, a private backing or a backing to the printing of the money. So this way there was an accounting measure and a regulatory board. Where I am confused is how so many of these chip manufacturers, like who's regulating them still? I mean, where are we? Because I see in the family business of running the White House, for which I rely on them for my security and my voice, since you can't be everywhere and you have to rely on some people, humans at some point. I see that they had a break-in, and again, management's been tussled. They want to now put some voice that doesn't match the family business inside Supreme Court. It seems like they keep putting these messengers that don't match the family lineage into these positions, but then it compromises national security and monetary security by the backing for which we already have, and you have alliances and partners already in place. So why can't those alliances and partners say, absolutely not, we're not putting that messenger in that seat? Hello? Just curious. So this is how the TV this morning mentions it in a couch potato. It's not going to run that train of thought.
Welcome back to CBS Mornings. Almost all of the electronics we use rely on microchips. The demand for them jumped during the pandemic and production.
And that's only because these specialized backing to monetary for closed circuit network area for special purpose and quiet management before the last several decades and century now. Now all of a sudden they decided we have all these chips, and then they let them out and they made a market out of them. Then they made a economy out of them. But in doing so, they caused arbitrage because they took nationally secure products and that had a special purpose and function, and they repurposed it and they put it out there, and then they compromised the health of like humans in large public and private sector. Again, where do you go to say this is not okay? I'm not okay with it. I know how it runs, but I mean, putting the world back together, little pieces at a time.
Disruptions and supply chain issues made it difficult for suppliers to keep up. Chip shortages cost the economy billions. That's right, billions in 2021. Now experts want the government to step in and help them.
But look who's working in North America. I mean, and again, I don't even know if this is North America. There is so much commingling in aerospace or like aero whatever. I mean, it just feels every time I look at what they're reporting on for investigative purposes, for investigative journalism, I'm watching their stories and I'm like, they haven't kept a single product line neat and tidy. I mean, sure, some parts of Asia has. Kudos to them. I have no idea why Europe and North America's gotten so dirty. I have no idea what's going on in South America. And I have no idea what's going on in Africa. And I have no idea what's going on in Russia. Because we don't get those kinds of stories. But honestly, I mean, these could be images from any of the places. There are certain clues that are indicative of the Americas and not the Pacific market. But for the most part, I'm looking around and I'm just like, they really have torn apart the semblance, the assembly line that we had in place. And I feel the effects of just how much breakdown there has been in this breakthrough. And then I was watching, I hope I have enough memory for this, they were explaining this morning how the studio hands out, because they did West Side Story, and even though Steven Spielberg redid it, it's still the most disgusting acknowledgement. And no offense to him, but whatever, get over it. So they have a studio who hands out tickets for seats to these academies. And then or to these awards. And then there's an academy that votes on these awards, I think. That's the way that they explained it, that I could try to understand it, because I'm not a part of it. And then they all know one another in this like closed, tight-knit circle. They cheer for one another. It's like an extension of the theoretical high school that never ends. So, and that's the circles that they run in, and they keep their protection in. I get it. It's important function. I'm just not a part of it, so don't expect me to get all excited. And I don't prefer one over the other. And I didn't follow whether they're following the rules or not. But then I see this this piece, again, Melinda Gates is there, sitting at the table in the forefront of this other unknown movie producer who wants to break barriers. Why is she walking around and not arrested or executed? Just curious. There are specific business deals that go on. They're agreed upon in quiet because they don't want you to know their faces. They come up with some storytelling and solidify it in big screen. It not only comes in as an insurance policy, it really works well in holding them accountable to the agreement they originally made. And then that's in movie producer land. Then there's the television land where the investigators are trying to keep neat and tidy, but things are breaking. And then they have to tell their story of like, we know about it. We're trying to like work on it, but you don't want the public to know, but we've got to, and it's getting really dirty. It's the way I look at TV and movie producers and the difference between. And then you've got now, again, they want voices. They want to. You're not part of the larger business products. Again, there's got to be a regulatory board. Here's the storytellers clan. We agreed to this in this section. This is, and that keeps it private, wrapped up in one function, one franchise, one series. But right now, it feels like there's not even cohesiveness of keeping that. So it spirals out of control because now you haven't kept studio clean, you haven't kept franchise clean, you haven't kept TV land clean, you haven't kept politics clean, you haven't kept management clean, you haven't kept the people in order, you haven't kept labor pools clean, you haven't kept industry clean. So now everything's effing broken. And I feel every damaged relationship. It feels like it is so painful to walk around as a human in this environment in New York City.
Help American manufacturers make more chips. Meg Oliver's in Malta, New York, 20 miles north of Albany, inside one of the factories at the forefront of chip production in the U.S. Meg, that's a serious suit and a serious operation over there, isn't it?
Posing.
You need a little attitude to wear this, Nate. I gotta tell you, good morning. No one is allowed in here unless you're dressed like me from head to toe. That's because we're in the clean room where they like to boast it's 1,000 times more sanitary than an operating room.
1,000 times more sanitary than an operating room. Wow, imagine how nicely you would age and how healthy you would feel if you had that kind of living environment or working environment.
They produce about 1 million microchips daily, but the need is so great, they need to put out at least 10 times more than that. How big is this facility?
So this facility is about 420,000 square feet, and that's a give or take about 7 football fields.
Here at Global Foundries in upstate New York, everything looks yellow. Special lighting is used to protect the delicate production of microchips.
Yellow lighting. Look at the difference. Here's yellow lighting. Here's where I'm held. There's safe lighting. In order to make computer chips, that's the color lighting to keep them whatever. But yet I'm held, computer chips are being more valued than my own life. Look at this. This is the level of light I'm in.
Engineer Christopher Belke is equipment manager.
How complex is it to make these microchips? They're in everything we use, phones, TVs, cars.
It is extremely complex, and as the demand on capability increases, so does the complexity.
Chips are needed for just about all devices, laptops, home appliances like refrigerators, gaming
Why the hell does a refrigerator need a computer chip? And why the hell would anybody manufacture a refrigerator and tell other people that it has a computer chip? You weaponized refrigeration. How stupid are the humans?
Consoles and medical equipment. The chips are the brains of devices. The U.S. produces just around 12% of the world's supply, and we've relied heavily on chips produced in Asia. But when the pandemic hit, it shut down major production plants, decreasing supply.
We don't want to rely on foreign entities to be able to give us the brains and the guts of what.
Right, so this divides and is smart. This divides the Americas from the Pacific. I get it. Again, neat, tidy, structure, reliable, less wars, less things to fight about. I mean, there still be whatever, but it will be a lot less casualties. And while you're living in a whatever area, it's a lot easier to walk upright, to breathe, to function. And it's not so tight and biologically damaging every step.
Our everyday vehicles, devices, our cell phones.
There is renewed focus on producing.
The chip doesn't need a market with a utility. That is a private conversation that may have been thought up to tell someone no, that they were not allowed into this type of knowledge or market or whatever. But when they told them some kind of excuse other than it's classified, then what happens is the child that's not allowed to know anything starts developing something, so this way then they can come back for some kind of a US patent or whatever for permission to then create a market. Again, if these things are not regulated and controlled, you get what I have going on in New York City and what the investigative journalists are portraying on state media. It is a dangerous operation the way that this is being led, especially with the dirtiness of what got into the White House and then what's in other parts of the U.S. Messaging. I mean, this is not acceptable. There has to be a layer of arm's length.
More chips at home. As some experts warn, not doing so could also be a national security risk. The House is currently considering the Chips for America Act. That would provide U.S. manufacturers with $52 billion in funding to help boost domestic production.
Let me ask you a question. Is that the same House and Senate that is so dirty right now that if you look in the room, there is no semblance of the original founders that are monumental men? You may, in your room somewhere, have someone who's fighting for some other cause that maybe they're being honest about, maybe they're not. Maybe you heard a rumor about, maybe you can't confirm it, but it's really frightening. Right, so why would you compromise my level of national security, holding those private meetings and making decisions for all the rest of us with multiple nation states in the room with you, compromising my national security? How does that get put together? I'm just curious. Because they're writing bills, they're writing laws, they're writing future labor, they do one little thing and then it gets pawned off, and then there's a breakage and a leakage somewhere along the line. What I don't get is why it's not fixed in a expeditious manner. Why are more people joining the conversation that I can't even get into, but yet I'm affected by it? I'm wearing Cupcake socks, for God's sakes. I wouldn't be sporting these unless I was one step from homeless.
Why is it so important to manufacture on American soil?
Well, I think it starts first and foremost with security. It's kind of trusted supply.
And he uses this really interesting word called capacity. Capacity and capitalism for me, for my purpose, in one conversation at family level, articulate almost almost like the layover of my knuckles, how they fit together. That's capacity and capital at the moment. Right now, there's a problem. I don't know if it's electricity. I don't know what word you want to put on it, but there's a major problem and a break.
Supply chain. The second is just think about the economic activity a manufacturing facility brings to the U.S. We employ over 3,000 employees at this site.
Tom Caulfield is the CEO of Global Foundries. In addition to upstate New York, they have facilities in Vermont, Germany, and Singapore.
What stage?
So their partners are already chosen. Problem now becomes, I've seen some reports out of Germany. They don't look clean. They're not Hitler clean, I'll tell you that much. This is where it really matters. Because now you're letting people travel into Germany and now get into the national security and monetary business and monetary fund, or what backs the monetary fund. Oh, that's frightening, because now they learn things. Other people don't know that they've learned things, and now they want things. And then they fight over things, and then things break. So I don't understand how you have these multi-nation states that have this upper level agreement that need to keep themselves above all other nation states. They themselves have to keep themselves neat and tidy, like with stronger borders, stronger gardening standards, and keep everybody else out so they can run that level of security and not break. That means no traveling international students. I mean, again, if you have a cross-gardening agreement within and they applied for it and it was all right, that's one thing. But I don't understand how you can have so much not us inside of a really tight security procedure for MEU space CO level, the one gentleman that I saw, and an us being, let's just say President Joe Biden at the moment. He'll be the face of that for the White House. If that's the level of family estate that's being run for some special purpose with whatever, why is it so difficult to keep that level and measure of genetic security for the family estate in the utmost priority position? How did this get so convoluted, and why were there so many breaks in policy and procedure for safety and health standards?
Are we at in this chip shortage?
I'd like to be more optimistic and tell you that right around the corner help's on its way. Just the complexity of technology, that it takes years to put capacity on. And I think...
Years to put capacity on. Yeah, it does.
For the better part of the next 5 to 10 years, we'll be chasing supply in this industry, not demand.
Experts estimate the chip shortage cost the U.S. economy around $240 billion last year. A recent report from the Department of Commerce found in 2021, demand for...
Now that's an interesting symbol. I'm not quite sure what that's related to. Again, it has a ship, and it looks like an obelisk. I'm not sure if that's a lighthouse. I think it's a lighthouse because it's got light coming out the top of it, like a beacon almost. I think we had that conversation when the world stood still.
And for chips were as high as 17% more than in 2019.
This is what everybody wants.
This is the goal.
Caulfield says they'll continue to try to meet demand, but they need private investments and federal funding through the CHIPS bill.
It's really important that we have supply chain security in the U.S. and know and sleep well at night that
Supply chain security. I couldn't agree with this gentleman more. Problem is, you're asking a dirty Senate and dirty Congress. You're giving them inside information. They don't belong to the same nation state. they belong to an outside nation state for ancestry and lineage and heritage, but now they have access because they're who you have to rely on for the federal bill and or agreement of some sort. Now, God only knows what the Fed looks like. They're like a mysterious bunch. Nobody knows how that's all put together.
The GF will do their part when the CHIPS bill is funded.
Both the House and Senate have passed their own versions of the CHIPS Act, and while there appears to be bipartisan agreement, there is not an official agreement just yet, so no funding. Tony?
Yeah, people want that supply chain to be secure. We used to make a lot of chips. Good to see that we are ramping up production once again. Meg Oliver in the suit in Malta, New York. Thank you very much. I had the confusion you might face when you have a scratchy throat or runny nose. Dr. Celine Gounder of Kaiser Health News will help you answer the question, is it COVID? And
That's infectious disease control. Man, did that industry ramp up when the chip industry broke safety protocol and family standards. Watch who comes up next. So now enters bioterrorism. So we got over the public safety, public health, already broken. How'd it break? Got it. Okay. So now we're going into bioterrorism because now the things that weren't allowed to travel have now been all over the world learning all sorts of stuff. The Congress and the White House has been asking for money. There's been people in those meetings that should have never heard whatever they heard, but they were there because someone gave them a chair and a cup of tea for reading tea leaves. And here we are.
Spreading coronavirus subvariant threatens to bring yet another surge in COVID cases here to America. The subvariant called BA2 is more contagious than the original Omicron variant.
Now, if I look at the map, it's breaking out in the Pacific. Breaks out in the Pacific before it breaks out over here, right? Is that because, like, they're fed and we're starving? I'm just curious on, like, how it works kind of a thing.
Variant, and it is rapidly spreading in parts of Asia and Europe. It now makes up about a quarter of cases.
I really thought that's why we have a White House of our own for family estate, and we had that secured backing where they didn't have to dig in the earth, and there was a accounting measure for the paper that was being printed.
Cases here at home, and it could explode just in time for spring allergy season, of course. So Dr. Gounder, thank you for being here. A lot of Americans have. Dr. Celine Gounder is an infectious disease specialist, editor-at-large for public health at Kaiser Health News, and she's.
Whoa, hold on a second. I have multiple problems with this. Kaiser is German for king. She is not king. She's the fake king. That's the problem. Second, she's in infectious disease control. Really? Now, how did that happen? That sounds like a fancy word for somebody pays her to design diseases to put out in the public health under some Kaiser label, which German, really? You catch a germ, Germ, and then all of a sudden weird things happen to your body and it starts to break down. She's not German, for sure. This is not German, but it's working in a German field. How did that happen? Hitler? Just curious. So now it's working there. It's got this label that it's working for public health. What, to kill everyone in genocide? I'm just curious. Because it's an infectious disease specialist or special disease whatever. That just means that it sits in a meeting somewhere on a big pharmaceutical board and designs infectious disease. This is not like cancer and radiological diseases. This is you catch something or you're infected with something purposely, and then they sell you a product to save yourselves from whatever symptoms it causes. So they make a market out of breaking the humans in some medical outdoor facility that looks very human, but the humans are suffering under their taking advantage of a situation. Why is this allowed to go on?
And she joins us now for more. Dr. Gander, thank you for.
And on that note, the chips are being, for General Foundries, is being manufactured in a part of Germany. Again, why is she employable? Why am I wearing Cupcake socks? My face is all blown up. I look nothing. My muscle structure and my skeletal structure looks nothing between central nervous system and autonomic nervous system. My physiology and anatomy looks nothing like what I was born with. Why is that? Anthropomorphic that could have been avoided. It's because of dirty invasions in quiet areas like this that need to be rectified. But I don't see any large area militarized zoning special for vector and sector. I don't see any unity and unison in cleaning out the problem, in skeletons in the closet. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.